Hello and welcome to the very first episode of 89 with Steve Smith Sr. and James Palmer. Steve, how you doing? This is episode 1. Initial thoughts right out the gate is what?
Super excited.
Yeah.
Man, I love working with you, James. You're my dog, man. We're doing a show together now. All we need to do is hit the slopes together.
Oh, yeah.
Get an opportunity to hit those iron greens together, and then we'll be officially buddies. Would you say?
Officially, buddy. I didn't know everybody's at. Listen, I'm just going to throw this out there right now. Did I yesterday take advantage of the massive ski sale going on here in Colorado right now and get myself some Nordica Enforcers 94s for the season? Just add another pair of planks to the arsenal? Of course. Did I do that yesterday? So, just excited to ride a new pair maybe with you. What I want to do here, Steve.
Hold on.
Okay, what?
Hold the phone.
You want to talk skis?
So are we saying that there's a possibility of one of these couple of episodes we may be in town together and then go hit the slopes as well?
Oh, man. If we do an episode slope side with like a fire and everything, maybe just be in a lodge, I don't know. I mean, it's where we both feel pretty comfortable,
I think you know some people. I know some people. We name drop some other people, and I think we may have a shot.
I like this. And what I like about this, you said it. We love talking ball together. We want to essentially take the conversations that you and I have when we see each other on the road. Like if we're checking into a hotel, how long does it usually take before we actually check into each of our individual
Probably about
rooms?
30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, because we just talk ball in the lobby.
Because we have so much data information, and we get a lot of information. Sometimes I believe, I've asked myself, are the teams or the people telling me this stuff to see if I'm going to dry snitch?
Yeah.
To see if I'm reliable? So sometimes I'm not sure, so I just keep it inside.
Yeah. And then we double check, we cross reference, and we get it out there. So we want to pull back the curtain on the league. We want to have these conversations that Steve and I have across the country pretty much in all these different hotel lobbies, and now have them for you. Pull back the curtain on the league a little bit. And so we're going to start this show, Steve. We're going to get to some rookie wide receivers. I want to know what your first game was like and what that felt like going out and being an NFL player for the first time. We're going to compare that to what some of the veterans did in week 1. We're going to talk about some of these quarterbacks that maybe struggled in week 1, did not play in the preseason play a part in that. We'll see. Also, we're going to also talk about a couple of different star players at the wide receiver position that held out, and did that impact their week 1? But we're going to go through some quick things, call it quick slants, just to start this show and get it moving, Steve. And we're going to start with the biggest story in the NFL this weekend, and it happened before a ball was even snapped. That's Tyreek Hill being detained outside of Hard Rock Stadium. Now detained, not arrested, but was cited for reckless driving, cited for speeding. We're not going to be lawyers here. We're not going to get into actually what was out there. The body cam footage is out there from the police officers. An officer also has been put on administrative leave. What I want to ask you, Steve, first off, do you have any take on what transpired or anything you want to say about what happened with Tyreek Hill? And also Calais Campbell, who was also handcuffed while he was there trying to, see what was up with his teammate.
Just watching all the tape, when we first saw everything, it was, spliced up. It was, camera phones. And then obviously with all these different outlets getting the footage, the police cam or body cam being released, 3 minutes and 42 seconds. I would say it depends on who you talk to and what pair of glasses that you're wearing, what side of the fence you are on, Tyreek or police. You could take it either way, but I would personally say allow the tape to really speak for itself, and let the process take its course on how the police department will proceed with the 3 minutes and 42 seconds and a lot of audio. Technology now has the ability to take out the murmurs and separate the outside noise to some degree, so you can really refine and kind of zoom in and listen to what was said and how things were said. We don't care if you have a game today, little things like that. I think this is going to be an interesting way this plays out. I don't think, from what I've watched, that what Tyreek did deemed to be handled that way. And I thought Tyreek did a heck of a job when he said, what if I wasn't Tyreek? I do think that's a profound statement and a huge statement that he made, and I agree. And so I just think, it's 3 minutes 42 seconds. So it's depends on who you are, which side of the fence you're on, and what your experiences have been. I think it's going to be an interesting outcome for everybody.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I want to kind of spin it into football a little bit because you kind of know this and nobody else knows this that hasn't played in the league. What is in your mind? What's your mindset driving to a home game, right? Like you're already locked in, right? Like you're already focused.
You're getting locked in. You're in the, everybody's locked in is different. Some people they get locked in when they leave the hotel. Some guys, they get locked in when they put on their uniform. Some guys get locked in when they put on their clothes at the hotel leaving, because not every team the night before, some teams are allowed for home games to stay at home.
Yep.
Some teams they do a hotel. It just varies, based on what the coach believes that team can handle. But when you're a block away from the
exactly, you
the
can
stadium,
see it like in the footage. It's right there.
You can see it. You start to bob your head on whatever's playing, right? If you playing Adele or if you playing Kendrick Lamar. Yeah, I played Adele. You playing Kendrick Lamar, whatever you got going on, you're just kind of getting in the mood. For something like that to happen, you can see Tyreek comes out and he's pumped, he's ready, kind of just hitting that, that
you're getting in
that
game
butt
mode a little bit.
Yeah, but when something like that happens, I was before one of the games, I actually was hit. I was hit, sideswiped.
Oh, really?
In a car accident on the way to a game, a Monday night game. And had to deal with that. And that was wonky too. That kind of threw me off a little bit, shook me up. And it doesn't shake you up to where like you think shaking up, but it shakes you up to, it throws off your day, your moment, your routine.
Yep.
But the way Tyreek came out, how he played, and as the game got on, he started to go back to the Tyreek that all defenders and defensive coordinators fear: his speed, his ability to catch the football, get active, sideline to sideline, vertical. Tyreek he's a problem. He is a straight problem for all the defenses, and with speed, all these speed guys are a problem. However, Tyreek is, he's the cheetah. He's a different animal when he gets the ball in his hands, and his vision is ridiculous. So, I don't expect anything less when all that happened. It's like, man, not being locked in was the least of Miami Dolphin fans' problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Tyreek was listening to, whether it was Adele or Kendrick Lamar, who's going to be the halftime performer, by the way, at the Super Bowl this year. It's going to be Kendrick Lamar. That's going to be absolute fantastic. And then you think about the speed you mentioned, Steve. He did exactly what he always does. Travis Etienne fumbles into the end zone, and what happens? One play later, it's 80 yards. Tua Tagovailoa hits Tyreek Hill for the touchdown, and it makes it 17-14. That starts their comeback to win this. I want your take on the touchdown celebration. The cameras cut away on the broadcast because I was watching, and the CBS cameras cut away pretty quick. But
everybody cut away.
But there are pictures, right? He puts the hands behind the back, and Jalen Waddle comes over. Thoughts on the celebration? I'm assuming Tyreek at some point long before that 80-yard touchdown run was thinking, if I get in the end zone, this is probably going to be the touchdown celebration.
It was something unscheduled. He didn't say, hey, I want to be at the team before the game. Yeah. So,
no.
But I think it just goes with the emotions, man. It just goes with the emotions of the game and what happened prior to. It's unique. Rarely happens like that. So I just think, he did what he was feeling.
Yeah. And well, he was feeling it the way he usually does. There it is right there, Steve. It's well, you kind of knew Tyreek would do something like that if you know Tyreek, and I've covered him for a long time. And yeah, It's not really a shocking celebration, and Jalen Waddle, I think, put it out there. PIC partners in crime.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: it's not like it. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what happened. It was actually slightly more civil than what happened in reality. What happened on the field. So let's move on, Steve, to another game that we watched in that same portion of the country. It was the Falcons and it was the Steelers. High hopes for the Falcons offense. We thought finally a quarterback comes in and they'd be moving. Didn't really happen, but all eyes were on the quarterback on the other side of the field, really, which was Justin Fields, not Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was named the starter for the start of the season, but a calf injury keeps him out of the game. It's Justin Fields who gets the start. What I want to say first is, because you know this and I know this too, the pregame tested out. How often, because I want to know if we completely agree on this, how often is it really a pregame tested out, Steve, for an injury?
It is true that there is a true tested out before the game, right? There are some players, like these teams really do test it out before because they do want, if you're available, you're expected to play. But they also know, this coaching staff, the training staff, they know sometimes you got to protect a player from themselves, right? I think there is a tested out. What I find kind of coincidence. This calf injury has held him out, Russell Wilson, for a few games, a few practices.
Weeks?
We've seen this. So to make him the starter in the beginning, and then on game day, you're testing it out. I'm kind of scratching my head like, yo, you already kind of knew this was going on. So how all of a sudden you made him the starter on Tuesday and on Sunday, the calf is flaring up. Now, was it flaring up?
They say he re-aggravated it in practice on Thursday.
Bro, here's why. You know why? It's that pressure. The pressure in the back is re-aggravating out there trying to play a game because he knows, Russ knows that Justin Fields is right behind him. He knows. I said it on some shows on Sunday, and I'll say it again. Arthur Smith, when you go back in the history of Arthur Smith, you look at his offenses. He's never really had a dynamic quarterback when you're talking about throwing the ball, rhythm, on time, rhythm. He's never had one of those guys. Marcus Mariota, he was not a quarterback throwing the ball on time, on rhythm, 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, boom, out, right? He was not taking the offense and saying, hey, Mike linebackers, number 55, hey, switch this. He was not commanding an offense. Arthur Smith has never had a commanding quarterback at the helm of any of his offenses. He's had Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill, after Miami, Marcus Mariota again.
Desmond Ridder.
And
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor
a litany
Heineke,
of quarterbacks in Atlanta last year.
Right, and now Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields gives that offense a little bit more layers and things to defend. But as far as on the time throwing, neither one of these guys are that. No. That's not who they are. When we talk about Russell Wilson and who he is and what he was, we talk about Russell Wilson is off schedule. When he was in Seattle, they used to practice off-schedule throws. He was not a rhythm-throwing quarterback. Has never been a rhythm-throwing quarterback. And that's not a knock on Russell Wilson. It's his style of play. However, what has happened with Russell as he's gotten older, his style of play is no longer his asset. And so now he has to be a quarterback that has to throw on rhythm, and he hasn't translated that to success. Now, he does you can see him warm up, and you see his Instagram and all that stuff where he's throwing and he looks good, and I call that the underwear Olympics. He looks good doing that, but it ain't no It ain't no TJ Watt coming after him, chasing him, right? There's no real danger in the underwear Olympics.
Or in the training camp, really, for a quarterback.
Or in training camp.
At all.
Quarterbacks wear a red jersey. Do not touch the quarterback.
100%. A couple of things, Steve.
Now,
I want to
now
jump
in the game,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I do want to say, it's usually in the pregame warm-up who is around that player specifically will tell us if it's actually a real pregame tested out. If no trainer is standing around you, you are not testing it out pregame.
Oh no, not at all. If there's no coaching staff and no trainer, you ain't testing it out, bro.
Exactly.
You testing it out for you because they already told you, nah, you're not playing.
Yeah, Russ did not have a trainer near him. He did not have a coach near him. He was throwing to an equipment
He wasn't
staffer.
testing it
He
out.
was not testing it out
testing it out
pregame.
for?
We knew it was
He was
going to
testing
be Justin Fields. And Steve, I want to comment on what you said. You said what he was, I believe, with how he was able to create and play off script. When I talk to people around the league, that's the concern with Russell Wilson. There's enough people around the league I've talked to that said they think that part's gone. And if that part is gone, that's the part that made him who he was. If he's not getting away from people and extending plays and creating in that sense, and he's getting caught from behind and he can't create and play off schedule, then the part that made him special, that really kind of separates him and Justin Fields a little bit, because we know, let's just be honest, throughout his career he's been able to do that specifically in the fourth quarter. If that's not there's not really a difference between the two. There's plenty of people I've spoken to that are like, with everything you mentioned with Arthur Smith, there is an added element that Justin Fields brings that Russell Wilson just cannot. And that's with the explosiveness with his legs, being able to roll out and do different things on the move as you compare the two of them. And so when you look at what Fields did, 156 yards passing, 57 rushing. They were extremely conservative. He didn't air it out a bunch.
Yeah.
I did see a little bit of chemistry between him and George Pickens. I'm not going to lie. He hit him a couple of times deep. And it's going to be an interesting decision as they move forward, because there are plenty of people that think the recipe in Pittsburgh, Steve, is this. You play great defense. Apparently Chris Boswell is the greatest kicker that's ever lived, going 6 for 6, 3 of them past 50. And
a punt.
And he's punting out there, too. Boz is doing all of this. And then
pay raise.
Yeah, give him a pay raise. Some people think he might win, offensive and special teams player of the week. Who knows? Yeah. But that's the recipe there. And protect the football. What did Fields do? He was sacked twice. He did not turn the football over. And so we'll see what happens heading into Denver, a game I'm going to be at on Sunday, because we know that is the Russell Wilson versus Sean Payton game. I believe Sean wants Russell Wilson to play.
Do tell. Why?
I would say, if that's your quarterback and that's the guy you had in the room for an entire year, you know his strengths, you more importantly know his weaknesses. And you know what a team would have to do to stop it, because you know the type of coach Sean is, going, we need to avoid these things because this is our kryptonite as an offense with Russell Wilson, so let's avoid those. And that's going to be the interesting factor of that game. But I think we're going to follow, honestly, Steve, this quarterback situation for the season, maybe several weeks more. So? I think for a couple more weeks. Because the part
I don't think so. I don't think you can. You can't allow your guy to win a game and take him out.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden go back to him after. We've seen that experience before, have we not? It was called. He's in Denver right now. Is that Zach?
Zach Wilson?
Zach Wilson. How did he handle that? Because young players don't handle demotions and promotions all in a 3-week span, right? That's a lot. I don't think you can do that just because he's already won a game.
He did. Now, Pittsburgh usually doesn't allow injuries to have you lose your starting spot, but at the same time, he won the game. And I will say this, when I talk to people in Pittsburgh about Russell Wilson winning the job, it was essentially two things. He's the vet, he started as the one, and Justin didn't run away with it. So it's not like, I didn't talk to anybody that said Russell Wilson went out and won the starting job over Justin Fields. It was right there next to each other. So if Justin Fields goes out and play, he can stay the starter. Okay, we need to move on. We got a lot to cover. I want to talk about on this show sometimes, Steve, guys that don't get a lot of attention. And they could potentially get some attention, and we're going to put the light on him a little bit. I want to talk about Alec Pierce, Steve, who has a touchdown catch of 60 yards. He has another grab, I believe, of 54 yards downfield. How do you think of a day for 3 catches and 125 yards and a touchdown? Deep receivers. What is the first tell me about Pierce as a receiver in your mind, and then tell me about deep ball receivers, because it is a different trait to be a threat deep down the field. And it's a different skill level.
Well, I'm looking at my notes that I got because he had some great contested catches last year, right? Averaging a little bit below 43%, 42.9% contested catches last year without a full season of Anthony Richardson. And when you look at Alec, I saw him at Cincinnati at his pro day because Sauce was there a couple of years ago. A lot of teams were amazed at his ability to track the football. He had to catch a lot of jump balls in college. And then when I went to his pro day, he's pretty impressive.
Okay.
And so I was watching him, and then you watch him last year when Frank Wright was the coach and they were already let go, but you can see some small little pieces of how good of a player that Alec Pierce was and what he was becoming. He has some speed. Now I look at him today, and now you can see that he's starting to almost peek into that savviness, veteran-like route running. He can use his speed vertically, but he knows how to leverage and angle and get next to or behind or around the corner in a way that's pretty good. You can see even on some of his catches, he had a nice catch over the middle, sets up, kind of pauses, sets up, throws the hands up and dashes to the left on an under route, and he goes up and catches the football. 564 of his work, 87% of his work was done outside last year with the Colts. So understanding he's not this slot guy. He may run slot plays, but his slot work is below 20%. I think it's like 13.5. And then average depth of target last year, little bit below 16 yards per catch, 15.7 yards per reception. So he's not a name that people are thinking about. Now people are going on draft and now snagging him.
Yeah, right.
But that's your fault because he's not on the cover of these fantasy books. He's inside of the fantasy book that you buy based on the cover, but you never read. And so he can ball, man. He can play, and he's just going to continue to get better and better. And Anthony Richardson, you can see, loves throwing him the football, and here's why. He will protect the throw with the quarterback.
That's big.
Every quarterback has a guy that they say, if I need a play, and there's, a lot of times we see, especially when a team isn't doing well, we see this, I think this is the dumbest stat. We see yards of separation. Oh, these guys can't get open because of yards of separation. Sometimes I look at, they can't get open because yards of separation is because the quarterback doesn't trust them, because the quarterback is still trying to figure out what's open for them in the league. And the league is you're open by your athleticism, your ability to anticipate the throw, but also anticipate the jump ball.
Yep.
So Alec Pierce can catch the football, contested catches all last year. And then now this year, he just picks up where he left off, except he has his big arm quarterback. Last year, it was
Gardner Minshew. That's what I was going to say. I was like, being a deep threat, half of it, Steve, is having a quarterback that can get you the ball down there.
No, it's not who can get you the ball. It is the quarterback who trusts that you will protect the throw no matter where the ball is.
How do you prove that? Is it just reps? Do you prove that in practice? Do you prove that in camp? Like, how do you sell that to a quarterback?
Well, it goes by your actions. And what do I mean by protecting the throw? If a quarterback throws the ball up and you jump up for the ball and the defender has the opportunity to intercept it, when you're protecting the quarterback, you all of a sudden become the defender on the corner who now is the receiver to try to get that pass, to try to get the interception. So now you start to defend you get a PBU basically. Yeah. You pass breakup. And when the quarterback sees that, they go, okay, my guy will always protect the throw. And that's something that receivers and quarterbacks, you don't talk about it. It's like baseball. It's one of those unwritten rules.
Yeah.
I got your back, you got my back.
You know who did that? Amon-Ra St. Brown maybe had the best PBU of the entire week 1. When he slipped, fell, ball's about to be picked, he gets back up off the ground and puts a hand up and knocks it out before it can get picked off for Jared Goff. I mean, that was an unbelievable play that actually changed the course of the game a little bit. Alec Pierce also, Steve, the 2nd and 6th fastest player on a play in week 1. So he was moving, man. He was out there. He was out there moving quite a bit. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to move on in 1 second with more with 89 with Steve Smith Sr. and James Palmer. Here's the deal, people. All season long, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Only on Underdog. Pick higher or lower on your favorite player, and you can join the millions of fans winning millions this season. Sign up today using promo code UDNFL, and you'll get a free pick as part of your first cash entry, plus $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, promo code UDNFL to cash in on every touchdown this season, only on Underdog. All right, Steve, let's stick with the receiver position. 3 vets, though, not a younger guy like Pierce. We got 3 veterans that were all holding out for contracts or holding in, however you want to do it. CeeDee Lamb, the only real holdout, not showing up.
Give me my money.
Paid. He certainly did. It was CeeDee Lamb with the Cowboys, Jamar Chase with the Cincinnati Bengals, and Brandon Ayuk with the San Francisco 49ers. 2 of the 3 got paid. Let's just say also remember Chase has 2 years left on his contract, but ended up not having anything done. Unlike the other 2. So let's talk about all 3, and let's talk about the one that played Monday night first, because Peyton Manning, one of the greatest of all time at the quarterback position on his Manning cast, alongside his brother and Bill Belichick, had this to say, Steve, after we saw a Brandon Ayuk, do you want to call it a drop? I guess, maybe, diving in the end zone on a really well-thrown ball, I will say that, by Brock Purdy on a play that he usually makes, which is why he got paid what he got paid, because he's a very, very good receiver. And this is what Peyton had to say. Get signed. Get in training camp. There's a reason for training camp. You need it. You need the reps. Get those contracts done earlier so we can get into training camp and we don't drop balls on opening night. You're still catching balls at a high school field from some quarterback that's 45 years old, my age. You're not catching balls from your quarterback. Get signed, get in camp, and we don't drop the ball. First and foremost, Steve, holding out, missing pretty much all of camp. Week 1, still the same for a veteran receiver, or is it different?
I agree with Peyton on what he was saying, because I do believe, after watching this week's games, I believe the lack of work that everyone's doing has an impact. And I have a belief that in the 4 quarters, right, the league and the coaches, when you start opening week, they break the season down in 4 quarters.
Yep.
I believe, so for me, what I've seen over the last couple of years as they've taken away and limit, in a good way, but sometimes it's with every new thing, there's some things that kind of start to rear its ugly head. The first quarter of the season has become sloppy September. And then all of a sudden in October, they're trying to really iron it out in October. Then things start to kind of even out in November, and then people really start to hit their stride, and you start to see who this team really is in December. There was a team in the NFC East who started out really good, still sloppy, started off really good, but by December we started to see
I was at a lot of those
smoke and mirrors. The smoke and mirrors are off. and you can start to see who they really are. So when you hold in or hold out, I'm telling you, it's just different. You're not in football shape. But there were players who didn't hold out when I was watching a game, and they had their hands on their hips and were gassed.
Yeah.
And so not playing in the preseason, I believe hurts everybody. And you're seeing it out of the wide receivers, the skill level, because those guys, you can see it more and more. But I'll show you, we'll talk about it later on how it's impacting the quarterbacks as well. But these guys, these three guys, CeeDee Lamb, I thought he played a really good game. Mm-hmm. He had some tough competition against Cleveland. They play man-to-man. They're very physical. I thought he played pretty good. First game, didn't play any of the preseason, so I thought he had the best performance
he was the holdout.
Yes,
he
the
didn't
best
even show
performance out of all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Chase, it wasn't necessarily Chase, Jamar Chase, that didn't play well. I don't think their offense as a whole played well. They seem to be 2 or 3 seconds off. And then obviously with Brandon Ayuk dropping that pass, but that's also pressing too. You know you haven't been in camp. You know you just got paid.
That's a great
You're
point.
on Monday night. You got to go against Sauce. You got to go against a top-tier defense. And DJ and Reed, he ain't no slouch now. Mm-hmm. Like everybody talks about Sauce. Reed can ball on the other side as well. So it was a big game, and with everything going on, it kind of was a rest. It was the perfect situation that I would say, see, that's why he should have been in camp.
Yep.
Would he would have dropped that pass if he was in camp? The problem is he wasn't in camp participating.
We don't know.
So because he wasn't, you got to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like Brandon Ayuk, though. I've been on Brandon Ayuk for a while.
Yeah, you have.
So I don't really look at that as something as bad. But what I can tell you, by October, though, I believe he'll be firing all cylinders and may end up starting to peak into that top 5 just because he did save his legs a little bit by not going to camp. That's just me.
Okay. Well, listen, just like I was curious how the 49ers were going to come out, because if you remember last year, I'm just going to say this off the top of my head, this isn't right, but I think they were like, out of the gates after what happened 2 years ago in the NFC Championship game, Birdie goes down, and they were like 30 points, 45, 35. Yeah. Like they came out as an offense flying out of the gates last year. I was curious with Trent Williams holding out and Ayuk holding out, and then Christian McCaffrey's got the calf. Offense was still humming, even with all of that coming out of the gate. He had 2 catches for 28 on 5 targets. I looked this up. Lamb and Chase essentially, Steve, did play the number of snaps that they usually play through most of their careers. So they weren't really held out all that much. Jamar Chase was 6 for 62.
Hold on. Yeah. He also, it came out, he had food poisoning.
He did have food poisoning. And that'll knock you out, man. Have you had food poisoning? I have. It's terrible.
Hey, you get that Nella? That salmonella? That thing coming out both ends.
Yeah, you're toast. But the thing that I want to know, honestly, coming out both. Listen,
you just.
I was like, if I can move on as fast as possible, that'd be great. But I can't.
As fast as possible.
As fast as possible, like what happens. I want to ask you about CeeDee real quick, because this is a guy that he had roughly, Steve, 1,000 more receiving yards than anybody else on the team a season ago. I mean, the biggest gap between the leading receiver and the second leading pass catcher in the NFL. I mean, he's their passing offense. Yeah. So I do think he went out and he played well. That's also, I know Cleveland has some issues, and we'll get to some of them. Those are 3 really good corners. It's not really like whoever lines up in front of you. They're pretty good corners. And he played well, but him being such a big part of it, did that lead any concern about how the early portion of this season goes for Dallas, considering he really is kind of their passing game?
He's their passing game just because that's how their offense is built now. If you really look at it, sometimes there's teams who really look at getting guys getting everybody involved, and then there's offenses where it's built around getting a guy heavily involved.
Yeah.
And when you look at Coach McCarthy and his type of style of offense, he's always been one of those guys. He has a premier quarterback. Dak is a premier quarterback. He had a premier quarterback or Aaron Rodgers. And then they had a dominant receiver. Who was that? Jordy Nelson or Javon Walker, right? And I know Javon Walker was not the receiver. When he was a receiver, I believe Brett Favre was the quarterback at a little bit of that time. But then also Mike McCarthy I don't believe he was the head coach at that time. But my point is that old school offense where you have a guy who catches this many passes and everybody else is way down there. That's that old school football that also gets the Dallas Cowboys in trouble sometimes because they run that 4-minute offense where they run the ball at the end of the game, but if it's 3rd and 3, it's a pass. If it's 2nd and 15, it's a pass. If it's 3rd and Houdini, it's a screen or draw. That's that old school football that is essentially getting out of football, and that's why the Sean McVays, that tree is starting to cultivate and Kyle Shanahan cultivate throughout the league, because that style of offense now that we're talking about is a collective. It's a pass catching tight end, a receiver, one or two receivers, a dual threat running back or running back by committee. That's kind of way they do it, and speed. You're seeing more and more guys with speed and less of great route running.
Ooh.
The guys who do run great routes,
Okay.
like a CD Lamb, like a Justin Jefferson, like Brandon Ayuk or Jamar Chase, you add that speed and then that type of offense, and you're getting these huge numbers.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get smaller and smaller. They're going to keep going because the faster and the better these guys run routes in this type of offense is remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah. And we thought we were going to see that out of, you mentioned Jamar Chase, and it really wasn't him. I'm going to transition this from these three guys to quarterbacks in week 1 that we just kind of, maybe some we were surprised with, Steve. Some we were maybe not surprised with in how they struggled. Some of y'all were surprised. I want to stick with the Cincinnati Bengals because this is what happens with them. They start slow every single year.
Super slow.
Unbelievable. And every year they try to say this isn't going to be the year we do it. We know that they've had Burrow coming off of injuries a couple of those years. Obviously, he had the calf, and then I think it was the ACL before. And so there's been some things, and he had the wrist this time, but he had a really good camp. He feels like his deep ball's been better than it's maybe ever been. He put on some weight, muscle-wise, that he used while he was out with the wrist last year, and all these things, and they come out slow again. And it was interesting, Steve, because it was a game that they should have won. If you look at some of these quarterbacks, I mean, you're playing New England, you would assume that Cincinnati, who has aspirations to be in that Super Bowl conversation coming out of the AFC, is going to beat the New England Patriots week 1. But it didn't happen, and it was almost like the way the offense worked, and I want your opinion on it, was like short. And we know the chemistry that Burrow has with Jamar Chase. I really didn't feel like, even with Jamar being out, the amount of ball they played together, it wouldn't matter all that much. But there was no pushing the ball downfield, and there was a lot of throws underneath the sticks. What's your take on what you saw from Cincinnati's offense? I know it's a different OC, but it's quarterback coach becomes OC. It's Zach Taylor's offense. What did you see though that kind of surprised you about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offense?
What you saw is obviously something that a lot of people don't put in the equation. The new head coach is still a defensive coordinator. Even though he's the new head coach, he still has his handprint or his fingerprint on that defense. He still had a lot of those players from last year that he is extremely familiar with. Oh, yes. And they had their top-tier corner who probably would have been defensive rookie of the year. Gonzaga. Gonzo, he's coming back, and you heard him talk about, we did not want to allow Jamar Chase to get a new contract on us.
That's a great line.
Right?
Yeah.
But you also got to understand when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, historically under Joe Burrow, under Zach Taylor, they throw the ball down the field. That's what they want to do. Well, if you get a defensive-minded coach who understands and knows what they want to do and make them do what they don't want to do, which is check the ball down, go down, not go down the field, that's where the problems start. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals offensively, Joe Burrow has been hurt. Why? Standing in the pocket, waiting for the deep throw. Now, all of a sudden, the deep throw is not there, and now they have to go down, and so that's why that offense looked different. That offense is predicated on explosive plays, 20-plus yards and more, and that's why they have so much speed.
Yeah.
But now, all of a sudden, they can't, and that offense is not, and they don't run the football. So when you don't run a football, we don't fear. Well, you're giving play action for what? We know you don't want to run. You just gave away. You gave away Joe Mixon.
Hey, he ran the ball well on Sunday.
Bro, you had Joe Mixon at times sitting on the bench, standing next to the running back coach, while y'all are chucking it and ducking it. And now all of a sudden, you're gonna implement a play action when everybody knows that play action just for you, because we not acknowledging it. We're gonna pin our ears back and we're gonna play zone coverage. We're gonna throw off the timing of the offense that you want to do and make you throw it short. They're not a short throwing offense. When you can limit the Cincinnati Bengals to that, that's what they look like.
I like it. I like you give Gerard Mayo, and I think a Patriots defense is going to be pretty decent throughout the course of the season. I like that you kind of gave them their props a little, Steve. So it wasn't going to be what was the slogan a few years ago from Joe Burrow? F it, Jamar's down there. I think it was something like that.
Yeah, he was down there still. Jamar's still down there. He could run.
But the ball wasn't
I did
going
break
down
down Jamar.
Ball wasn't going down there. Let's stay in the state, Steve.
Okay.
In the state of Ohio. And Deshaun Watson. I thought Deshaun Watson, the storyline of him coming into this season and them winning 11 games last year, mostly without him, and Joe Flacco being the quarterback there, and you know Joe. And as good as that roster is, I don't know why we weren't talking more about what do we think will happen with Deshaun Watson coming off of an off-season shoulder surgery on the throwing shoulder as well. And the contract, he has like $138 million over this year and the next two, guaranteed no matter what, that this wasn't a bigger storyline. Because this is a team that has a very, very good roster on both sides of the ball. And it really kind of falls on the quarterback. You got the guy in Kevin Stefanski who just won Coach of the Year. It's a good staff. It's a good front office.
For the second time.
Yeah, for the second. It's a good staff. It's a good front office. It's a great defense. It's a good roster. And Deshaun Watson goes out there, Steve, and has his worst game in total QBR of his career, his worst yards per attempt of his career, his worst first down percentage of his career, 18%, sacked 6 times, hit 17 times, 8 PBUs. Oh, yeah. Let's say this. Yes, going against a good defense, tackles out. Jack Conklin being inactive before the game also hurts them. We know that they have offensive line issues, but he didn't play in the preseason. They wanted him to, and then decided by the third game for him not to. This just doesn't look like the Deshaun Watson I covered in Houston on a regular basis, Steve. Are we ever going to see that player again? Because that's what everybody in Cleveland is curious about. And they might just say now, are we going to get anybody close to that player?
Well, you know, everybody's going to say something that's going to be somewhat disrespectful. The thing that's tough is Deshaun Watson hasn't played the Houston football we've seen him play since he left Houston. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that, I don't know, right?
I think that's the concerning point, right? Like, I don't think
everybody's going to try to say that, but that's the part about sports and age. Bro, when something about your game leaves, it never lets you know. It doesn't give you a heads up. It
That's a
just
wave
goes.
goodbye.
It just goes. And I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson can't play. I believe he can play. But he cannot play good football when your offensive line is as shaky as it is. When you're getting hit 17 times, that makes any quarterback nervous. It makes it difficult for the wide receivers to perform because you don't know, well, they got me running 15, 20-yard routes, but 8 yards into my route, I can hear the crowd, which would indicate there's something going on behind me that probably isn't beneficial to me and my route that's going on. So there's just a lot of stuff going on that I don't believe is going to get better, especially because it's not a fundamental issue. It's not like Deshaun can't throw the football or he can't this, he can't that. Your up front line play is it is. When I was watching that game, it was a ton of people in the backfield all the time. If Deshaun wasn't slipping because he was going through his 5-step drop and he was 4.0, there's a lot of people back here.
4.0, there's a lot of people.
Yes, that's what it was. It was difficult. And so now you have to all of a sudden keep your eyes down the field when you already can feel the pressure or the pocket collapsing. It's going to be difficult for Deshaun to play good football if he's consistently under duress.
Let me ask you this, though, Steve, because I covered him a bunch in Houston. He was under duress then. I mean, that was not a great offensive line that he had in Houston.
Different offense, though.
But they're trying to get back towards that a little bit, right, with Ken Dorsey. It's closer to what he had with Billy O. But this is my point, and this is what I wanted to ask you. Is age, is all of that coming into factor, because he does play a style of play where he has contact. It happened early in his career. He does, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he'd found a way to get away from it when he was younger.
So here's what I would tell you. Does age play a factor in sports? Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. Yes, it does. It plays a factor.
That's my point.
The problem though, this type of offense. So you got Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator. But the fundamental fabric of this offense is Kevin Stefanski, which is Gary Kubiak type of offense.
Did it look like that on Sunday, though? It didn't look like a Kevin Stefanski offense out there.
No. And so it's a combination of both. But a lot of Kevin Stefanski offense is built on zone running, gap scheme, fast flow, misdirection, reading. And so when you don't have all of that working cohesively together, you get what you got with the Cleveland Browns, which is you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Is it this? Is it, it's like in the cafeteria, it's Wednesday, mystery meat Wednesday. What is it? And that's what we saw. But then you add poor or struggling offensive play with a lack of identity on the offense, and you kind of get what you got. And then you add, you're down.
Yeah.
And so now what do? You're just now trying to figure out which pass plays can possibly spark something.
I get that. And I do know this. I talked to people in Cleveland towards the end of camp, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and it was, we do expect some growing pains with this change in offense. Like you said, and you're blending some things together. We're going to have some, it's not going to always be pretty. We're going to have some issues early in the season. And as we figure all this out, because it's new for everyone, and they didn't really play with their quarterback in the preseason at all in terms of game reps, with so much new. I also would say what hurts them moving forward is this offense, if you know it, the tight end can thrive. And David Njoku, I thought would play great in this, and now he goes down with an ankle injury. That's almost like usually what, Steve, in this type of offense, the safety net for the quarterback. And now you're going to be without him for a few weeks. It doesn't look great for them offensively where they stand right now.
So that that move with David, with Njoku being out, that's why I think they got Kadarius Toney, where they need someone in the slot. They need that little outlet. But you also remember, Njoku only came in and started to flourish under a guy who already knew this offense and mastered this offense. Joe Flacco knew this offense. I know this offense. This offense, we know this offense back in 2013, 2014, 2015, when Gary Kubiak was in Baltimore.
Yep. Remember that?
And so we had OD, we had Owen Daniels, we had guys who knew this offense and understood this offense. And all of a sudden, Njoku stepped up when Joe got in there, because you got to remember, when Deshaun was in Houston in this type of offense, they didn't really have a dominant tight end play. They had dominant wide receiver play.
Hot.
So that's what I'm talking about, is fundamentally changing. So now you got the real tight end, one wide receiver. So you got to go back. Go back and you look at when Deshaun was doing it, they had who? D-Hop, dominant, right? Running game. Can you say they had a pass-catching tight end that was like Njoku when it was D-Hop and Deshaun?
No.
Who was the tight end?
I'm trying to remember. That's where they stood at.
That's my whole point. Yeah. I knew that already. I was just trying to set you up. That's not what Deshaun is traditionally used to. His outlet is scramble around, get it to my big play guy.
Yep.
In this offense, you don't scramble around. You get it to your outlet, which is the tight end, the running back, and then you have the wide receiver. If the defense takes away the wide receiver for the big play, your outlet is underneath.
I want to talk about one more receiver, and I want your take on Jameson Williams from the Detroit Lions. Only two players after week one have more yards than J-Mo. And coming out of the draft, I went back and looked at some draft notes, talking to some receiver coaches around the league, and remember he had the ACL. I think it was in the national championship game. So like the rookie year was almost a wash. But he still gets picked like 12th overall because I'm looking at these notes and some of them are like, there are things that he can do that no other receiver in this draft can do. The stop-start ability, the explosiveness that he had. And then the other part, and that's why I wanted to talk about him because we're in year 3 now, I'm looking at these notes and it says the thing that's so appealing about him is there is a lot of room for growth. What they saw from Ohio State to Alabama was this much growth. And they still didn't think he was a finished product at Bama. So when he had the ability to grow so much with all this talent, are we going to start maybe seeing that? And I want to know if those are kind of some of the similar things that you heard with him coming out in terms of the receiver he has the chance to become.
With the growth at the two different schools, you also have to understand the factor in this. A lot of these schools, colleges, even though they have different coordinators, they're running the same offense, right? That's the problem in Clemson. They're running the same offense. The problem is the quarterbacks, the quarterback play, the offensive line play is or is not there. At Alabama, even though they had different coordinators, they all ran the same offense under Nick Saban because Nick Saban wanted to keep it the same way. And so when you have that going on, then you go to Ohio State and you play in Ohio State and then you go to Alabama. Now you're learning different techniques. What was acceptable in Ohio State, which is something really small. So some receivers like to swim, which is here. And some receiver coaches teach rip, which is underneath. Well, if you're running an underneath route and you're slipping and you have to run a slant, that doesn't allow you to get separation, which means that allows the corner to be on you so the corner can slingshot, pull your jersey, tug your jersey. But when you use the hands, that allows the ability to separate and they can't slingshot. Which means they can put themselves between there's the football, hands, body, defender.
Okay.
Those little small details are things that you have to eliminate the bad habits every player has every year, and then you have to eliminate the bad habits they were either picked up or taught in college. What Williams does, and I think what you will see in the next couple of years that will be a difference, is if he can add 3.5 pounds, maybe 5,
Okay.
to his body frame. And the reason I cap it at 5 is because how you gain that weight and what your body load, your lower half, is used to carrying. That's where you have to find, that's where the science and the nutrition comes in. If he can add, I think, 3.5 pounds to his of weight, muscle to him, I would think that allows him to fight through some of that contact that the corners know right now because of his speed that can throw him off his route a little bit. When he can get that, but he's like Worthy. If he doesn't break stride, you're in trouble. And you saw that. Then did you see also when he got tackled from behind, you could kind of see him grimace because of concern. When you get hurt, your body starts to clench up when you have a possibility of that maybe happening again. For me, that was always an underneath route. I was always skittish running underneath routes because I broke my ankle.
For the rest of your career?
For the rest of my career, if I was going across the middle, shallow, not deep, shallow, because shallows is shallow. You deal with dropping ends and linebackers. When I went shallow, if I got to that second hash mark and you didn't throw me the football, I would go back towards the line of scrimmage. Do you want to know why?
Protect yourself.
Because the quarterback would not throw me the football going back towards the line of scrimmage because the quarterback did not want to get a negative receiving pass. And so I would go back towards the line of scrimmage to protect my ankle. So I had a mental clock that was like, he ain't throwing me. I'm not an option on this play. I'm hitting the second hash. You better not throw it to me.
I like it. That's a part of this game, Steve, that most people don't know. They don't know that, why isn't he back faster? Why isn't he the same guy immediately when they say he's medically cleared? There's a lot going on with these injuries and getting back from them and overcoming them.
When a guy's medically cleared, that means he's cleared to do activity and football work. What you have to overcome the hurdle and medically cleared is the psychological part of, can I trust I won't get hurt again?
Yep.
Can I trust when I start to load on that, whatever that ankle is, that I don't get that little twinge or that burning sensation or the something that goes, uh-oh. That's the part that takes a little bit longer. Kyle Pitts is a great example. He was back. He was medically clear. He was back medically. But psychologically, he had to figure out, can I trust if I go right, my body's looking left, and I got to catch the ball this way, will my knee go, we good? Or will it go, no? Because you got, in those ligaments, when they are surgically repaired, there's a limitation, but there's also scar tissue, and there's parts where you were 6-8 weeks of not moving it. And so it's lost its flexibility. So you got to warm that up.
Yep.
So it's a lot of things that go into injuries that people don't understand psychologically that you have to get back to. And it takes a little bit of time to get back in there, be comfortable, and test it out and be okay with it.
Yeah, and we'll see if Jameson Williams continues in the right direction. The last thing I want to make as we close out the very first episode of 89 is this, Steve. You were a special teamer. And this is in my notes, and I just want to say this about Jameson Williams, and I think this is telling sometimes about players. When I went and did the pro day that he did not participate in but was down in Tuscaloosa talking to people, they believe he's the best jammer on special teams that Alabama has ever had.
Oh, wow.
What does that tell you about him as a player and a competitor in the way he approached special teams as a dominant wide receiver?
If I put on my GM hat, that says value, right?
Yeah.
That the value of a player in multiple positions, which also tells me his work ethic, his ability, and what he sees himself. He sees himself as a worker bee. And worker bees can eventually turn into divas and wide receivers, but worker bees are guys who are okay with getting their hands dirty, who will go down there and block guys, who will do all the necessary things to stay and be on the field. And that, my friend, it has value in which you can't teach someone how to work hard. They either are willing to work hard or they aren't.
All right, Steve, we've talked a lot about rookie wide receivers throughout the offseason, you and I. We've evaluated. I know you've dug deep on a lot of these receivers in this draft. A boatload of them were taken, a ton of them taken in the first round. Before we get to them specifically, because a lot of them made their debut this weekend, week 1, as a wide receiver, starting your NFL career, take me into Steve Smith going to, I believe, Minnesota for your first NFL game. What's going through your mind?
Super nervous. Want to do well. You're super nervous. You're excited. You have that internal dialogue is I'm hyped, but I'm nervous. I'm hyped. I'm nervous. Well, how's it gonna go? Wow, am I really here? You're trying to get your suit together. You're sweating. You want to get out on the field. You're on the first bus. Do I take the last bus? I don't want people to know. You're looking around, observing. You're just trying to take everything in. But then it's also like, oh yeah, it's my dream. So it's
Cool.
a lot, man. It's a lot. And people gonna try to play it off and not really say much and hey, keep it calm and collective. But that's great. But at the end of the day, bro, at the end of the day, it is my dream to play football. I'm here. Let's not screw it up.
But I was always worried, just curious about the position because, right, like everybody talks about, I want that first hit, right? Like, and if you're an offensive lineman and it's your first game, it's like that first time you engage is you're off and running. But if you don't get the ball, like, are you kind of waiting? Is there a delay in it? You had one catch in your first game.
I was
one target, one catch, 16 yards.
Yes, I was the special teams guy, really like fourth or fifth wide receiver on the roster in the rotation. I think at that time it was probably best for me because I was still super nervous. I wasn't able to really just calm myself down and be able to mentally turn the crowd noise on and off.
Okay.
It was always just on. And then as I started to get more familiar on how to hone in my craft, I was able to basically mute the crowd when I needed to,
clear
but open my ears.
Like Kevin Costner in For Love of the Game? He'd say clear the mechanism when the crowd was gone?
That is serious. You can do that because you can. Yes, you can mute the crowd.
Costner, man.
And then all of a sudden, so you're running your routes, right? You're running your routes, you're doing this, and then you just hear yourself. You're going, and then all of a sudden you can unmute it. And when you unmute it, it's because you have that innate ability to know. That's where they say timing, throw off the timing, because in your route at some point, you will open up to hear the crowd to know what's going on back there without looking, to know, hey, possibly the ball. And so that stuff really happens. You are able to know and see what's going on. I used to do that all the time. Like I'd be able to, doing punt return, when they kick, I'm listening to the crowd, I'm doing this, I'm getting, and then when I lock in and they punt the ball, pow, dead silence. It's me and the ball. And when I'm doing me and the ball, let's see, just a sort of little flex. Let me get my first touchdown pass that happened to be against Minnesota.
Okay.
So when this is the actual ball right here.
The actual ball?
That was
they use that in the game?
This is the actual ball. This is the second year we played Minnesota when I was a receiver. So I kept the receiving one, even though my first one was touchdown. Yeah. So when the ball is going up in the air, right, as a punt returner, why I'm able to mute is because I'm now talking.
What are you saying?
I'm talking to myself. So I'll go, okay, this is a right-footed punter. So What's his average? 47.5. All right, we're going to be at 50. Hill's on the 50. All right. So I'm in there. I'm counting my guys. 1, 2, 3. Right? I got to make sure I got 10 because I'm 11. I'm 11. Boom. Got it. So I do my routine. Boom. I got it. When they punt it, boom, I shut it off. I'm shutting off. Where's the ball? Is the ball tip up? Because that means it's going to still keep going. So now I have to turn to catch the ball to get in position because his normal, if the ball is this way, he's hitting it over the 47.5 on the scouting report.
Back Steve goes.
If the ball is already in flight doing this or it's this means the wind is going to hit it and it's going to probably be a little bit short. So that means I have to get square and take an extra step forward so I could be under the base so I can catch it instead of when you see a guy fumble, he's doing this with the hands.
Okay.
And it's good for a wide receiver, but it's not for a punt returner because now you got to catch it. The ball isn't thrown with touch, it's punt with force.
Okay.
So if it's this way, it's going to keep going. If it's like this, the ball is coming down and it's a right to left spin, so it's going to go that way. So I have to get underneath me that way. That's what the mechanism's saying. That's why I turn on mechanism and I go, okay, ball tips up. All right, it's 47 points. It's looking probably about 52 yards. Okay, the wind. That's why you see the returners when they had real grass. They throw it up. Where's the wind going? It's going right to left. Okay, so I got to get all right to left. I know all of a sudden it's coming down. Now it's coming down like this, and I know, okay, it's going to go back that way, but I got the wind going that way. So instead of going right, I just stay in the middle of the field, concentrate on football. Now I'm looking, where am I? If it's a return, how are my blockers, my DBs, do they give me room? And now I have to turn it on because now I got to listen to my blockers tell me, you got time. I got to hear my special teams coach on the sideline. Hey, they're close, which tells me now I have to peek to see how close they are because the coach is telling me from the sideline how close they are. But me being, I'm a policy bender. Halo rule. I played college where I was part of the halo rule. The guys used to hit me to stop me from catching a
True.
So I'm used to, all right, solidify the catch first based on where's my gut blocker? Shout out Damian Richards. There's Damian Richardson. He's my good blocker. He's where I'm setting the return to. Then I go the opposite or to it. Let's go. And so all of that that's my routine that's going on. That has to happen. Why I have to turn off, and then why I have to turn it on and turn it off and turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, in between plays just to catch the punt or the catch.
Okay, I got a lot to digest here. I didn't know I was going to learn so much about punting today and returning punts. I didn't know you can just literally turn it all off. I thought Kevin Costner was full of shit in that movie that you can just clear the mechanism, block out the crowd.
Okay, so
didn't even know that exists. And also, thirdly, I know I didn't say it, Steve. Considering you're throwing grass and you know about this is why your golf game is off the charts already. Because you already knew all this flight, this wind, this everything. This is already a big part of your professional athletics prowess. Now you just translate that onto the golf course.
So you telling me, if I were to talk to your wonderful wife, Meg, are you telling me she would say that you've never turned off I call it mechanism. It's called selective hearing, bro.
Are you going to say I'm selective hearing against my wife?
No, you just admitted it. I didn't even say that.
You said her name. You brought her up. You led me down the trail. You just wanted me to say it. I see how it is.
So is that true?
Well, I mean, when I'm reporting on a sideline, Steve, usually I can block out the crowd behind me from what's going on.
Is that yes or no? That's what I asked you. Yes or no?
Well, if you're so focused on one thing, yes, you do not hear everything else.
Yes or no?
Yes, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask Gans the
I
same
got
question.
dad ears. I selective hear all the time.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. Let's get into some of these rookies, if they have selective hearing or not, or if they blocked out the noise, because there's a lot you got to deal with in your first NFL game. Anybody stand out to you? Because I have one in their initial performance. Do you want me to go first or second?
You go first.
I'll go first.
I don't really have any standout guys.
I have Brian Thomas Jr. with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That doesn't stand out. That doesn't stand out to me because I think he has an opportunity to do so much better.
I think he does.
Jacksonville limited him for whatever reason. I'm not sure why.
I like the touchdown. I like the PI. I like just seeing a guy in his first game going against an alpha like Jalen Ramsey and not backing down, holding his own, barking back at him, like jawing at him. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to go in, okay, this is my first NFL game, and I'm going against who's now the highest paid corner in football, who passes Pat Surtain, who he holds it for like 2 days, and that you don't back down at all. That's my point. Like, your first appearance out there, you draw a big PI, you get a touchdown, I'm here, and I know I belong here right out of the gate. I like that from Brian. I'm not saying it didn't happen with anybody else, but I could see it from Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, he could play. I talked about him in his draft process, and he could play. He did not get as much recognition because he was on the same team with Neighbors, but he could play, man. He could flat out play. I just thought the Jaguars didn't do a good job in that game overall of getting him more opportunities. But the game got away from them. They started to lose momentum. So a lot of things shifted. So they got outside of their wheelhouse, the Jacksonville Jaguars, which they generally do anyway, sometimes in their first couple of games. Worthy, when I look at Worthy and I watch this film, he's just a guy. I gotta go back to my
go to your notes
because I wrote
You make great notes.
I took a notice. I said, if he doesn't break stride, whomever the defender is, they're in trouble. I don't think Worthy is the finished product, but his speed puts him it just puts him in a category that could be such problematic for the defender. If he doesn't break stride, there's really not a lot of people that can run stride for stride with him. So that's the problem. Doomsday, I just think that he's gonna have to play in a slot, and I've said it and I'll keep saying it again. It's going to be difficult for him to play in the slot because they have Keenan.
Yep.
They're going to put him more outside, but I think where we're going to see him really flourish is when he's in the slot because he's just a mismatch nightmare. Keon Coleman.
Real quick on Odunze, remember, though, it's going to be out a couple weeks, MCL.
I know, but I'm just talking about.
I just want to get that for anybody listening. I know you know.
Yeah, overall, when they figure out where he should be, kind of like what we're starting to see, and maybe they'll figure it out with Jackson and Jigba, is he's a slot guy too, but you got Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
So Tyler Lockett does a lot of his work in the slot, and so they got him playing outside. So sometimes just doing that when they're getting these players and sometimes they're getting these players, a great example is a guy will play Z in college, which is primarily on the right side or in motion off the ball. And then all of a sudden they get in the league and they play an X, which is no motion. They're on the ball. And it's different,
Big
right? And so it just is different. Then obviously with Neighbors, they have a whole offensive quarterback identity issue. And then I don't really think Harrison was going to do a lot, not because I don't believe he can play. I'm just not sure rhythm-wise where Kyler Murray is after being out so long. That's going to take a little bit of time to get back in football shape with a knee injury. So that's why I'm not surprised. But what's going to surprise me is when he explodes, is it going to be 170 or 200 yards? That's the part that I'm surprised to see is how big of an explosion will it be when Harrison finally gets that opportunity, when that offense is clicking and Kyler feels 100% in that offense, playing with the comfort because he didn't play last year. He knows the offense, but knowing the offense, and then there's like this guy named like Sweat or Mac or Bosa coming at you. That's a little bit different.
A little different. I will say this: if you talk to people that have talked to Kyler, he has high expectations for this offense come clicking for this season.
They should.
He definitely should.
I think one of the things though too with Coleman, he's going to take a little bit because I just think the style of football he plays as a wide receiver, he's more of a galloper, which means it kind of looks like he's cruising or just like kind of lollygagging. He's not. That's just his stride.
Interesting.
He needs to play with a little bit faster pace. If he doesn't play with faster pace, we're going to keep seeing these 4, 5 for 50, 5 for 60. He'll pop 100, but consistently, I'm not sure if he's gotten there yet mentally to see how much faster the game is compared to his style of play.
Got it. I like that. I'm going to keep an eye on that now. You mentioned neighbors. This is another part about being a rookie, Steve, and learning the NFL and learning the media market that you are in. I, for one, believe his words were twisted by the New York media when he was asked about Daniel Jones. He more or less was saying, "I know what he meant. I think you know what he meant." When he said, "I don't know what's going on back there," that was twisted. He's more or less saying, "I don't know what's going on back there because I'm running my route.
I'm running my route.
I'm focused on what I have to do."
Exactly. I don't know what's going on. Nobody should be running around talking about, "Man, I hope they block up."
Yeah.
You're
looking and seeing what's happening with your quarterback the whole time. Like, you know what? I thought he should have stepped up in the pocket a couple of times. You know what I mean? Like, hey, he should have saw that. I saw it out there in the receiver spot. He should have saw the rush coming from the other side. He should have moved. No, he's focused on what he has to do. Do you remember this? This made me think because I've been there for some Steve instances. There's actually a meme sidebar where it's me, you're here, I'm standing there, and Chad Steele, head of PR, is behind for the Ravens.
Oh yeah,
and
that was Arizona.
I know this game, and there was a meme made that said, because Chad has this look on his face because you're about to say something that he does not want you to say because you both talked about it beforehand because I heard you guys talking about it. And that's why I asked you about the refs right away. When I put a microphone in your face and said, "Steve, what do you think about the refs?" And the meme says, "This is what the face of somebody where your job depends on what Steve Smith says."
I looked at Chad, was like,
and Chad was like, and you were, you told Chad beforehand. Tell me.
So Chad, shout out to Chad Steele. That's my dog, man. Chad was like, "Yo, Steve, they're going to ask you about the referees. You cannot talk about the referees." I'm like, well, if you know they're going to ask me about the referees and you're telling me not to talk about the referees, you know, this is like my second to my last year. What that got to do with me? I don't care. This is the last day of school every day for me, right? It's 3:00 every day now, right? Well, you know, and so he says, "Just go take a shower and then we'll figure this out, okay? Just go cool off." Man, that shower didn't have nothing to do with what I was still thinking about. So I took the shower, used soap, and then dried off, put on my clothes, and Chad goes, "All right, are we good?" And you know, me and Chad are like, he's like my big brother. So at some point you just gotta go, "Yep, we good." But we ain't really good.
But I remember what you remember because you're going to ask about the referees and you go to Chad, you go, "You know that food service Yelp?" He's like,
yep.
You go, "No stars."
No stars.
So then that happens. He's like, "You can't say that." I could hear him go, like, "Well, Steve, you can't say that." Well, I was like, "You guys have this whole conversation. You showered everything." Okay, Steve's ready. Stand up there. I asked the first one, "Steve, what do you think about the referees?" And you just look at Chad and go, "You ever heard of Yelp?" I was dying, man. I was like, he did exactly what Chad was like, "Do not do that."
Yeah. Chad said, "Go right." I said, got you. The lady on the, on the navigation, "Please turn right on 7th Street." I turned left on 7th Street.
Oh,
that lady
man.
don't know what she's talking about.
That was phenomenal. So my point with that is that's the end of your career. That's another aspect of NFL football, specifically in New York, that you got to navigate if you're going to be the star receiver.
Man, to always be on and be cognizant of what you have to say and do, it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
A friend of mine actually this weekend asked me, he said, man, do you ever get tired of being on? And this is a legitimate answer. At 45 years old, I said to him, I said, actually, no, today, no. Because I get the opportunity now as I figure out who I am, that I get to allow people to kind of be in my world now, in my brain, to know, like, I'm not really that person that walks around with whatever you think they are, that just kind of trying to find that equal ground, that level ground of showing your personality, but at the same time trying to protect a little bit of who you are, to keep that privacy and trying to holding that rope. It's a tight rope between that. So it's tension, holding that tension between privacy and being vulnerable and also being public at the same time. And then you having to weigh the emotional part of you just lost the game, and part of you losing is you didn't get an opportunity or you made a mistake. So it's delicate, and the tension sometimes goes, right and left, and sometimes you just don't know how to balance it all.
Yeah, he's gonna learn, and he learned week 1. Like,
He gonna learn
what
today.
I said was, whoop, and now I gotta really. I mean, this is the one that I always worry. I'm always curious about Steve being in the media side of things. How much is he gonna talk week 2, and how long are those answers gonna be?
I can tell you right now, he's like, man, I ain't saying nothing.
Exactly. That's exactly what's gonna happen in week 2. This was killer. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be bringing down more receivers, because that is Steve's wheelhouse, more skill guys, and talking about the league and what we're hearing all around the NFL. Week 1 in the books with 89 with Steve Smith Sr. and James Palmer. Steve, initial rating on our first show is what?
Well, I'm on the show, so that automatically gets us a negative comment. So we ate at an Ethiopian restaurant with your fingers. I got outvoted. I did not want to eat it. Ate it. We ate it like 7 o'clock. Bro, got on the flight, but we landed at 10, 11, got to the hotel. I checked in, like, ran up to the room and I was hurt. Like, I was so bad the next day, I tried to get up. I tried to get up, and I was sweating profusely. They were like, bro, go back to bed.